There aren't many albums that changed the landscape of an entire genre, but when N.W.A. dropped Straight Outta Compton in 1989, it did exactly that, sparking FBI warnings, political outrage, and putting West Coast rap on the map. But behind all the noise was a raw, groundbreaking record built on chopped up funk samples and a relentless drive to make what they called reality rap. This is the story of N.W.A. and how they made one of the most important albums in hip-hop history. To understand how this album came to be, you've got to start with where it was born, Compton. In the 1980s, it was a city under pressure, violent, neglected, and boiling over. The crack epidemic had hit hard, and gangs ruled the streets. And the LAPD's response? Instead of tackling the root causes, they doubled down with brute force. Under Chief Daryl Gates, the LAPD treated Compton less like a neighborhood and more like a war zone.
He established a militarized police department. He would send 1,000 people into specific sites of LA, and the police would simply descend upon these people who were out in the street at night and start mass arrests, bring them in, and lock them up.
Young black men were treated like enemy combatants, stopped, searched, beaten, all in the name of order. But in the middle of all of that chaos, a new voice started to form, one that would speak for the streets like no one had before. That voice didn't come out of nowhere. It came from garages, block parties, and makeshift studios scattered across South LA, where a handful of young artists were quietly shaping a new sound. First up was Andre Young, better known as Dr. Dre. He'd grown up in Compton, bouncing between schools, but found his place behind the turntables. He started DJing at Eve After Dark, one of the key teen clubs in LA. And that's where he met DJ Yella, who was already a regular there.
When I met Dre, I was already in the club a year. I was like the top DJ. Had the prime time spot, 12 o'clock at night.
And the two clicked instantly, inseparable behind the decks, spinning records, meeting girls, and at first music was just a side hustle.
We weren't thinking about music until we seen Run DMC. It was 10 minutes and they threw the mics down at the end. I'm like, wow, we can do that.
And that moment sparked something. Together, Dre and Yella joined the world-class Wrecking Crew, a flashy electro-funk group decked out in sequins and shoulder pads. The music was slick, the outfits outrageous.
It was for the women. It wasn't trying to be hard. We was trying to look sexy.
7 days a week. He's on call to get the party people up off the wall.
But behind the glitter, Dre was quietly sharpening his skills, producing, mixing, chopping samples. And when the Wrecking Crew faded out after their breakout hit, Turn Off the Lights, Dre and Yella didn't wait around. Next came O'Shea Jackson, better known as Ice Cube. Still in high school, he was sharpening his pen with a group called CIA, or Crew in Action, alongside his friend Sir Jinx, who, as it happened, was Dre's cousin.
I met Dre when I was about 14 years old. His cousin used to live down the street from me. Then he heard me rap and he just liked me.
At the time, Dre was producing out of Macola Records and helped to write and produce CIA's first and only release, My Posse.
Ice Cube in effect, and I'm the bossy leader. Love my whooper and hate my tweeter.
It wasn't revolutionary, but it marked the first time that Dre and Cube got into the studio together. Then there was Eric Wright, or Eazy-E. A high school dropout from Compton, Eric had made his money the street way, dealing in what he later called pharmaceuticals. But after an incident with his cousin, everything changed.
My cousin, he ended up getting killed and everything, and a lot of my friends ended up getting killed. I thought about leaving the shit alone because it wasn't worth it.
He'd stacked up cash on the streets, but now he was looking for a way out. So when Dre came to him with the idea to start a label, make some records, Eazy was in. And that idea became Ruthless Records. At the time, he'd never rapped a bar in his life. However, Cube had written a song that Dre thought would work perfectly for Eazy. He had the voice, charisma, and the respect of the streets. But his rhyming skills, they weren't quite there yet.
Back then, we didn't know to put the beat down, do the rhyme on the beat, and then give it to him. It was just like, nah, man, that ain't how you say that line. Say it like this. It took forever to get 2 or 3 lines out.
That song ended up being Boys in the Hood.
Cruising down the street in my 6'4", jocking the bitches, slapping the hoes.
I ended up rapping a song and everybody liked the song, so I was talking about real shit, make it visualize this shit happening.
And the real turning point for that record came thanks to DJ Greg Mack at K-Day, LA's hip-hop radio institution and a good friend of Dre's.
He said, yeah, we did this song, man, we need your help. So we go out to my car, we pop it in the cassette deck, and it was Boys in the Hood, but it was the not clean version. I said, y'all need to go clean it up. So that's where the radio versions came out. I played it, and the same day it was most requested. Everybody loved that record.
Boys in the Hood didn't chart. It was blasting from car stereos, bumping out swap meets. It was music made for the streets. With the sound of Boys in the Hood still ringing out of car stereos across LA, Dre, Cube and Easy knew they had to strike whilst the iron was still hot. They brought in DJ Yella, MC Ren and Arabian Prince, and they gave the group a name that nobody would forget, N.W.A. A distribution deal through Ruthless and Priority followed, and the momentum was building fast. But while they were out on tour promoting Boys in the Hood, their former distributor Macola had other plans. Sensing a chance to cash in, they scraped together every N.W.A. single and B-side they could find, plus some early Dre production featuring the Feel of Fresh crew. Then they threw it into a compilation called N.W.A. and the Posse.
N.W.A. and the Posse was a bootleg. It was an EP called N.W.A. and it had, 4 songs on it. When we left Macola Records, Don McMillan turned it into an album and called it N.W.A. and the Posse. So we never authorized that.
Still, it only added fuel to the fire. The streets were listening, and N.W.A. were already working on The Real Statement, their debut album. Work on Straight Outta Compton began in the summer of 1988 at Audio Achievement Studios in Torrance, California, a small, no-frills space in a strip mall. But what it lacked in luxury, it made up for in sound. Behind the boards were Dr. Dre and DJ Yella. Their setup was minimal, but their process was anything but basic.
We had tricks of the trade. The kick drums. We record 3 kick drums. 2 snare drums. When we record it, we EQ'd it the way we want to hear it. And then when we mix it down, we EQ'd it again. So it just fattens it up.
The beats were built on an SP1200, a 12-bit sampler with a hard 10-second sampling limit. To make it stretch, Dre would speed up the vinyl to fit in more of the sample, then pitch it back down to get that gritty signature tone. And that grit wasn't just a side effect, it was part of the character. For low end, they leaned on the Roland TR-808, layering its booming kicks under chopped up breaks for extra punch. On tracks like Gangsta Gangsta, you can hear the 808 sub against dusty loops, creating a raw yet full-bodied low end.
Keep belling, belling. Yo, what the fuck are they yelling?
Yella handled drum programming and cuts, adding a DJ's precision to the process.
The breaks and the scratching, like DJs. It was DJs first. So we knew how we wanted to hear it.
However, the studio's biggest asset might have been invisible, the room itself. It was tuned, something rare for a small setup.
It was tuned, so when we hear it, mix it, we take it to the car, it should sound
The
just
car.
what we heard.
And the car stereo test was their quality control. If it didn't knock in the car, it didn't even leave the studio. Dre pushing every element for maximum impact, carving space between vocals and drums, and using reverb to simulate depth in an otherwise dry room. Now, one track stood out for a different reason: Express Yourself.
I'm expressing with my full capabilities, and now I'm living in correctional facilities.
Built on a clean loop of Charles Wright's 1970s funk classic, it was one of the few samples that they actually cleared. But for the rest of the album, sample clearance wasn't even a consideration, at least not yet.
We were the poster child. We the one that got sued. Sly Stone, who walked away with $5 million. And he was homeless at the time.
Still, in 1988, those lawsuits hadn't landed yet, and Straight Outta Compton captured that moment before the curtain dropped, where sampling was still the Wild West, and creativity was about working around limits. The album was produced in 6 weeks with limited gear, no budget, and just enough time to get everything in the red. But what Dre and Yella managed to do in that period was revolutionary. Every loop was selected with intent. Every hit was EQ'd, stacked, and layered. Every mix was tested on real speakers in real environments.
We was like DJs mixing the album. One song come in instead of just fading it. No, we had breaks and wanted to just like, you could just play it continuous.
For producers, Straight Outta Compton is a lesson in restraint. Use what you've got, commit early, and focus your energy on everything sounding tight. Whether it was 808 kicks, 12-bit samples, or tissue-dampened NS10s, the sound was shaped with real intention. A raw, immediate, and impactful sound that still punches today. Not in spite of the limitations, but because of them. Right, quick little break before we get into the reaction to the album. If you're into soulful, vintage-inspired samples, you can check out our sample packs on our website. And right now, all the packs are buy one, get one free if you use the code SECONDCOURSE at checkout. Anyway, let's get back to the important stuff. The release of the album was like a grenade tossed into the mainstream, and the explosion was immediate. It landed with no major label push, no radio support, and no MTV. The group submitted the video for Straight Outta Compton to MTV, but with no luck.
and so people worshiping the devil and all this. But when we bring out a video telling the truth how it is on the street to show everybody so they can be aware of this, they don't want to play it. They say we promoting violence, promoting drugs. I disagree with that.
Still, that didn't matter because the streets were moving it. Word of mouth, swap meets, mom and pop record stores. It travelled like contraband and defied traditional gatekeepers. Within weeks, the album had become the pulse of the West Coast. The music industry didn't know what to do with it. It was a raw documentation of life in Compton, and at the heart of it was fuck the police.
Fuck the police coming straight from the underground. A young nigga got it bad 'cause I'm brown.
The track wasn't even a single, but it became a lightning rod, a direct challenge to police brutality and racial profiling. It spoke truths that mainstream America wasn't ready to hear, and definitely didn't want blasting from car stereos.
That same rage you saw back in the 60s be articulated through the Black Panther Party now was being articulated in the streets through this music.
That lived experience fueled the anger in the music, and the backlash was immediate. Critics and law enforcement officers condemned them as obscene.
Rap music promotes, by its very language and by its very actions, promotes violence against authority and consequently violence against law enforcement.
The FBI sent a chilling letter to Ruthless Records in August 1989, denouncing the song and accusing N.W.A. of inciting violence towards law enforcement. State and local government tried to ban the sale of hardcore rap, and conservative groups pressured major record chains to remove the CDs from their stores. But every time someone tried to shut it down, it just got louder. For N.W.A., the blowback was a badge of honor, proof that the music was hitting where it hurt.
They say we bad influence, we promote violence and everything. Number one is we don't. It's just like they try to hide what's going on and we tell it like it is.
As controversy swelled, sales skyrocketed, meaning the album sold more than 1 million records in under a year. And the group weren't thinking about their legacy. They were too busy watching the world catch up to the strength of street knowledge. The impact of N.W.A.'s raw, uncompromising voice echoed way beyond the streets of Compton, forever changing the landscape of music and conversation. Their legacy continues to inspire, proving the lasting power of their message.
Chuck D once said rap and hip-hop was the black CNN. N.W.A. represent that to the fullest, am I right? Bringing inner city life to the forefront and making the world pay attention to our realities.
And if you're a producer or music lover, we've just started our own Discord where we talk about music, ask questions, share samples, and it's also the best place to learn about our beat battles. So if that sounds like something you'd like, I'd love to see some of you there, and the link for that is in the description.